Hey. How are you? Happy Friday. I'm sorry I'm late. Well, not happy Friday. I guess it's happy Sunday. I was unable to record for a video for Friday like I had announced last week. It was a busy week. Just didn't have the time to do it. So you know what? I let myself off the hook. So I'm posting. This is going to be a late post. I'm either posting it on Sunday or I'll post it first thing Monday. But it'll still be, the word will be the same. And because I'm talking about the waiting list. And so it's interesting that I couldn't get it done Friday. I had to wait. So that, but what God is sharing with me is that just because you put on the waiting list doesn't mean that it won't have the same impact or the same reward. I want you to know that today. Just because you're on the waiting list don't mean that it won't have the same impact or the same reward as someone who has gotten theirs already. So I wanted to say that to you because the waiting list can be good. You know, the Lord has us on the waiting list a lot of times to build our character, to build our strength, to build our spiritual muscle. Maybe he wants us to study his word more, read a little bit more, pray a little bit harder. Maybe he wants us to go to school, learn a new skill, change our behavior, but it's all to make us strong. It's all to build our capacity so that we can handle the blessing. Now, I want you to understand this. It's all about us being able to hold and handle the blessing. So put on a waiting list is not a bad thing. Because, some people can get things early in life and they are not ready for it. They've been blessed with it, but they may not be ready for it. So let's just think about marriage, because a lot of people, deal with marriage. There's some people get married at a young age, or some people get married later in life. But the reward is still the same. It's a spouse. It doesn't change. It's a partner. It's a significant other, however way you want to, call them. It's the same. It doesn't change. But the quality may change, and the understanding of the two people may change, and the maturity level and how you've grown, that will be different. So I wanted to say that the waiting list can be good. And I wanted to help us understand that from Matthew chapter 20, and I think it's starting with verse 1. And it's about the landowner who has a vineyard, and he goes out and he hires workers. And so he hires some workers in the first hour of the day. So let's just say that's 6 a.m. He hires those people, and he says, listen, I'm going to pay you a denarii or a denarius. I'm going to pay you that. And so then he hires someone around noon. Or he go out and hire some workers around noon, and he says, I'm going to pay you a denarius. I'm going to pay you the same thing. Or is it a denarii? I want to make sure I'm saying it right, because, we say stuff all kinds of ways. Denarius, yeah. Pay you denarius. And so then he hired someone again in, let's say, 3 o'clock. Another group at 3 o'clock. He said, listen, I'm going to pay you a denarius for your labor for all day. Then he goes and hires someone at 5 o'clock. Well, we know work is going to kick off at around sundown, and so that's around 6 o'clock. So that's an hour before. And so he says, come on, you work for me and I'll pay you a denarius. So when it came time to pay them, he told his foreman, he said, listen, I want you to start paying the last first. I want you to pay the one that started at 5 first, and then pay the others, and pay them the same thing, a denarius. And so the person who had been laboring all day since 6 a.m. said they thought they were going to get more. So they said to the landowner, how could you pay the person who only been working an hour? Well, you're paying me. I've labored all day. And the landowner said, listen, this is mine. Have I robbed you? Didn't I agree to pay you a denarius? And that's what you agreed to work for? And the man said, yeah. He said, so then I didn't rob you. And I can pay people what I want to pay them. It's mine to do. If I'm going to be kind, who are you to question my kindness? And then the text ends with the first shall be last and the last shall be first. You know which one? The last shall be first and the first shall be last. However way we want to put it. This is what he ended it with. Because what God wanted me to tell you, being on a waiting list does not mean anything that God's going to give you is going to suffer, is going to lack anything. You're going to get exactly what God has promised you, just like the person who got it in the first hour. But while you're on the waiting list, take this time to build your capacity, to build your knowledge, your wisdom, whatever God is telling you to strengthen your spiritual muscle. Because If God's got you waiting, there's something he needs you to do or wants you to do or be prepared for before you get it. Here's the other thing. We have to understand we don't see the big picture. We don't see the whole picture. God does. He knows exactly who we are and what we're capable of and what's up the road ahead of us, what's there to meet us. So God is getting you ready. So listen, don't spend your time waiting and looking for the end. If you're on the waiting list, you're on the waiting list because God still is working something in and out of you. One of the things I know God really works with us is humility, understanding that we're not, if we get something, it's not because of who we are, but because of who God is. So God wanted me to tell you today, the waiting list is not a bad thing. The waiting list can be good. And I'm going to give you another way of putting it. You get married at a young age. You have your children at a too much of a young age. You're growing with them. You're going through growing pains. You're going through challenges. You're learning you're learning them. It's a struggle. It's a challenge financially, mentally, emotionally, physically, because while you can do it, you wasn't as strong. Versus a person who probably has a child in the latter years, in their 40s and 50s. They know who they are. They are mature. They're pretty much established. They have a career. They have a home. Financial problems may not be their issue. But the reward is still a child. That's what I wanted to tell you. It's still a child. It doesn't change. The same thing if you get married. You get married young. You're growing together. You're learning together. You're struggling together. You're building together versus somebody who comes in and they already have their careers and they have their homes. And so they're just trying to merge and purge to get it together. But the reward is still a spouse. It's still a partner. If you're waiting on a home, someone has had a home and they got their home in their early 20s or their property in their 20s, and now you've been waiting on God to give you yours, and you may not get yours till, your 40s. But it's okay, because now you're more settled. Maybe you have more cash flow. Maybe the lending is different now, which makes it easier for you to be able to do it. The interest rates are not as high as they were when that person bought theirs. But here's the key. You still get a property. The reward is the same. The waiting list is for you to be able to do what God needs you to do, whatever he's going to give you. He's building you. And let's go to Abraham and Sarah. If you know about them, how long they waited to have Isaac. Years God had made them promise years before, and they waited forever. But God was building them, building their character, building their faith. That's the other thing. God is building you up on your most holy faith, teaching you how to trust in him while you wait. That's the whole point of waiting. It's not to deny you. It's not to give you, what you've been asking for, if it's God's will. Let me say that. It could be or could not be. I've learned that too. But if it's God's will, I'm going to give you this and then we're going to close. Habakkuk. I want to read this because this is what God would have you to do while you wait. It's Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 2. And it says, and the Lord answered me, write the vision down. Write the vision. Make it plain on tablets. So he who may run who reads it. So write it down. Make it plain. So when you read it, you'll stay steadfast. He said, he who reads it will run on. He will stands firm. So write it down first. Whatever God is trying, write it down and read it and stand on it. That's verse 2. Verse 3 says, for still the vision awaits at appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. See, the vision, the thing that God has promised you, is hastening itself to the end. Wait on it. It will come to pass. It will not lie. So God wanted me to tell you. A lot of us want to use waiting as a negative thing, but I know for myself there were some things that if God had given me 20 years ago, I wouldn't have been good at it. I wouldn't have held it. I would have been in trouble. I would have gave the enemy ground. The enemy would have hit me. That reminds me of something. God told me this one time. He was like, I was asking him for something. He said, if I had given it to you then, you would have took it over to the enemy talking about, nah, look what my daddy did for me, and you weren't strong enough, and the enemy would have knocked you in the head and took it from you, and then use it against me. Use my blessing against me. God gave me that. And I was like, really, God? He said, yeah, because you weren't ready for it. So listen, don't despise waiting. Because what you don't understand and what I'm here to tell you is that the reward is still the same. Much love, Keita.